grab the... Yeah. You can just grab that little one. Okay, is it on? Thank you. I don't know if there's... Is it on? Or is it not on my end? Oh, it's pretty common for me, huh? It's you. Got it. Hey, we are going to do things a little different today. I love having... Part of what I love about Family Church is the idea that you get to walk out of here with your kids on common ground and figuring out how to talk about certain things and be on the same page. So we are going to do that, but we're going to flip it, and we're going to have that piece of it happen after. So we're going to bring the kids back in after. So we're just going to do a little reversing here. Okay, I'm going to bring this stuff over. It's a little...
Send the kids out first?
Yeah, so let's send the kids out now. Thank you. Unless you're a child and you'd like to stay, you're always more than welcome. If not, then come back shortly. Hi, Cricky. We'll see you soon, sweetie. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. Today I feel like we'll be really good. Micah called me 3 hours ago saying, I can't move. Can you step in for me? And I was like in bed in my pajamas. We had a wedding at our house last night, so Sam and I were up till all hours of the night picking up trash from the lawn and spraying down things. And so I at first, when he said he can't speak, I was like, great, I'm going to stay home and sleep in. I don't have to come support you now as a friend. I can just have home church. And so that, like most things in life, which actually is very funny because it actually is the message of today, which is, I guess, ironic. But you'll hear this thread throughout it. But what I get to talk on today, preach on, share on, however you want to call it, is out of Acts 9. And it's when one of the keys about public speaking, right, is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them, and then tell them what you just told them, right? Y'all know that? So with that theory, here's what we're talking about. In Acts 9, Jesus says to Saul, get up, go into the city, and you will be told what to do next. And so it's this idea. Today, we are talking about presence. And for me, a long time ago, I've stumbled into this discovery of living my life and my day in that way. And so for me, the voice of Jesus talking in Acts 9 says, Shalene, wake up, start your day, and you'll be told what to do next. And so I kind of laugh that is exactly what happened today. Wake up, start your day, and guess what? You'll be told what to do next. So we are going to be in Acts 9. And one of the ways, I think we talked about this last time, we are going to be talking mainly about the word disciple. All right, today is going to be an interactive day. So if you don't, which is optional for the record, so if you're a non-interactor, feel free to not interact. If you are, then please grab a note card. They're all in the buckets here, a note card and a pen. Part of the way I learn tends to be in a very academic way with definitions and words and how they fit together, context, all of that. And so I thought I'm going to bring that side of me to the message today. And I thought it'd be helpful if you guys could write things down, certain definitions and whatnot. So I interact with Scripture. I interact with the Bible a lot like I would a piece of art. And so I absolutely believe the Bible has absolute truth in it. I believe the Bible has historical records and accounts in it. I believe the Bible has science in it. But for me, the way I interface with it more than anything else is as if it were a piece of art. I don't know how many of you are art lovers, but you. So if you are an art lover, you will know a lot of what I mean, and it can speak to a song, a story, a painting. For me, stories are the most powerful form of art, and so the way I interact with this, like art, and what I mean by that is when I read a story at one part in my life, it's gonna hit me in certain ways, right? Depending on where I am in my life, what the context and circumstances of my life are, and when I read that same story years later, or decades, or moments later, I often can interact with the exact same story in a really different way. I'll interface with it in a different way depending on where I'm at in my life then. And so I have found that the Bible is that for me. It's something that that I get to be involved with. And one of the things I love about God in all of these stories, what he does with humanity is he makes humanity co-creators with him. It's part of why I like art so much, right? Because when a human creates art, they are co-creators with the creator, creating something beautiful, inspiring, something to be interpreted. And guess what? The way you read art is going to be very different than the way you interface with art, right? You can be looking at the same painting, the same story, listening to the same song, and it is going to hit you and inspire you and transform you in totally different ways. Sometimes in 180-degree different ways, right? And here's the thing I love about art. It's really hard to look at someone else's interpretation of art and tell them they're wrong, right? Like if I see a painting one way and my husband sees it another, I don't really get to tell him that I think that splatter painting sucks compared to the splatter painting over here, right? We talk about contemporary art. His mom's an artist, and so we go to a lot of art museums. But I get to honor the way my husband interacts and sees that particular painting at that time in his life, right? And so that's a lot of how I read the Bible. I get to honor how you interact with the Bible in the way that you're going to interface and react with it at that time in your life, and how you're going to interpret it. And so although I do believe that there's absolute right and wrong, I feel like the more we read the Bible, like science, and the less we read it like art, we get ourselves stuck a lot. I can only speak for myself. I get stuck. I have spent so many decades of my life being concerned. My number one goal in life was to be right. My husband and I have this joke that we go, okay, come on, just tell me my 3 favorite words. Just what are they? They are not I love you. They are you are right. And so I have lived that way so long in my life, right? Like, just tell me my 3 favorite things. Just, come on, you were right. Yes, I was. Okay. And so the Lord has been stripping me from this intense desire to be right. And so that's kind of where I'm starting. I want to start with interfacing. So I want to give you the freedom to interface with the message today. As it was created within 3 hours ago, to go, you get to interface with it however you want. This is actually a message and a journey that the Lord and I have been on for years, and so it wasn't that hard to pull it out of my back pocket and be like, sure, I'm happy to share about discipleship and what I think about discipleship. So here's where we're going to start. Write the word discipleship, and then I want you to write your current working definition for the word discipleship. What do you believe the definition of discipleship is to you? Does that make sense? So when you hear the word discipleship, if you had to write down a 1 to 2 sentence definition of it, what is your 1 to 2 sentence definition of discipleship? I'm going to give you a minute to write it. And then I'm going to tell you you're all wrong. Just kidding. Kidding! And I am right. Yes, she knows me well. I love it when people get to know my heart so quickly. So here's what I would like as you write down your definition of discipleship. I would love it if you would look at this, and then after we spend our however many 40 minutes together, I would love to know if the art that we co-create here today in this message and in this story, I would love to know if your definition of discipleship shifts or deepens, grows, transforms. I think it'd be really fun for you guys to have a definition, go through creating art with me, and then see if your definition doesn't shift or change or deepen, or however you want to call it. So here's how the Lord and I have been talking about discipleship. It came, he and I have been, I know you're surprised that I'm out of Matthew, that those of you who know me, I'm in deep on Matthew 5 and 6, but every once in a while I like to pop around. So I popped years ago into Acts 9, okay? And the way I typically like to interface with Scripture is in an exegetical way, which means you sit and you sit and you sit and you sit in the Scripture, and you let the meaning of the Scripture, exegetical, that word just means to draw out of, right? And we talked about the opposite of eisegetical, which means to draw into, okay? So it'd be easy to say, my definition of discipleship is this, and then I'm going to go find a passage that supports what I think discipleship means. Does that make sense? That's not necessarily wrong, although some scholars would tell you it is. I tend to like to sit in something and draw out the meaning of it. Okay, within Acts 9, you're going to see there's this word disciple in there, referring to Ananias, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I sat in that, and I'm like, well, man, I grew up in the belly of the evangelical church. So that word disciple has been used to exhaustion, right? I'm going to go to discipleship. I'm going to be discipled. I'm a disciple of Jesus. I'm going to go have discipling. I'm going to disciple this. And it's just been this word that has been so thrown around that quite honestly, I never really had my own, I never really had a great working definition of the word. I knew it was always in my world, and this doesn't mean in the external world, but in my world, discipleship was 99% of the times used in conjunction with Jesus, right? They were almost one and the same. Anytime someone was talking about discipleship, it was in the context of talking about Jesus. And I've had discipleship leaders since I was a kid. I have discipled others. And so I've really kind of been like, as I've shifted and grown and left my childhood and come into my adulthood, coming into, ing, progressive, into my adulthood, I'm starting to go, what does this word really mean to me? What is it? What am I, if I want to be discipled by someone, or if I'm going to go disciple someone, or if I am going to claim to be a disciple of Jesus, what am I really saying? And so I went, and I'm on a journey with the Lord, and I love words and the definition. So we're going to camp out in the word disciple from good old Webster's dictionary. I know Hebrew and Greek are obviously important in this context because that's the original context that it was written, but sometimes it's fun to just go at something in your native language. For me, that's English. And so I'm going at discipleship with my native language, okay? And here's the actual Webster definition of discipleship, okay? It's one who accepts and assists in spreading the doctrines of another. Okay, you can look it up. You too can Google it and find the same definition. One who accepts and assists in spreading the doctrines of another. So if that's the actual definition, I kind of sat with this in the Lord, and I'm going, okay, let's work it out. Let's work out our salvation. What are you teaching me? What are you saying to me? This word accepts, the way I do things is I tend to look at something, like when I looked at Acts 9, and I go, what jumps out at me? The word disciple leapt off the page at me. So that was what I wanted to spend most of my time interacting with, and I've spent years interfacing with this word. When I read this definition, I say, okay, what's leaping off the page to me? And for me, it might be different for you, but for me, this word accepts leaps off the page to me. And so I said, okay, what does it mean? What does it mean to accept? Let's dig into that word just a little bit. And the actual, again, back to Webster definition, I'm going to read it. It says, believe or come to recognize as valid or correct. Okay, agree or believe, come to recognize as valid or correct. If you accept something, you are in full agreement with it. I think. I'm not that interested in what you think, because we can talk about you in a minute. So I use the word, I like synonyms, right? So I use this word agree. And the reason I'm using the word agree here is because I've been on a journey with the Lord talking about the philosophy of agreement. Okay, so the Lord and I, for a long time, this word agree has been, man, a precious word to me. And so then I read it, okay, one who agrees and assists in spreading the doctrines of another. Now again, for me, I always hear this word disciple in conjunction with Jesus. So the next question for me, guess what it was? What's Jesus' doctrine, right? As you read this, okay, I'm going to be in agreement with Jesus' doctrine. I'm going to now assist in spreading Jesus' doctrine. Okay, what does that mean, Lord? Like, C jumps, my friend Stu would say, where are we going from there? And here's what the Lord, I should say this, time out. Before I knew where I was going, I had to have lots of conversations about where I had been, right? So where had I been? What do I really think the doctrines of Jesus have mean or been? And I realized I did some research on this, and so I asked everybody, like bad research for the record, not like Harvard research, just like my own research. And so I had a bunch of friends tell me, hey, write down your definition of disciple. What does it mean to be a disciple? I wrote down my own definition, and I realized that within almost everyone else's definition in my world and my own definition, my definition of disciple or discipleship included some level of good Christian behavior, some level of right thinking, right? The word disciple, to me,